The Ninth Legion was a Roman legion which was stationed in Britain in the 1st century. However, in two lists of legions written in 197 AD, or the Common Era, the Ninth no longer appears. This has caused a great deal of speculation as to what could have happened to the Ninth Legion, including many books, TV episodes, and even some films about the disappearance. However, there's very little factual evidence regarding the Ninth and what actually happened to it. But what we can do is work out which potential theories about the Ninth we can ignore as being too fanciful and unrealistic, and instead turn to more mundane answers as to what may have actually happened, even if they aren't quite as exciting as some speculation may have led us to believe. So let's start with what we actually know and what we can actually prove before we move on to what's likely to have happened. So from 43 AD to 108 AD, the Ninth was stationed in Britain and was engaged in some heavy fighting against the local tribes, including those led by Boadicea, and later in fighting in Scotland. During these battles and conflicts, the Ninth suffered some serious numbers of casualties, and replacement troops were transferred to it from provinces in Germany to bring the legion up to full strength. Now, in 108, the last recorded knowledge of the Ninth is in Britain, in New York, rebuilding some stone fortresses. After that, there's no more information about them actually being in Britain. However, in Germany Inferior and the area around the Lower Rhine, a decade or so later, there have been some artifacts that have been discovered showing some members of the Ninth were present, possibly as late as 130 AD. But it's not known if this was just a detachment of the Ninth Legion or the whole legion was actually present. Possibly they were as replacement troops for the 10th Legion, which had been transferred to the area around the Danube. So sometime between 130 AD and 197 AD, the 9th Legion ceased to exist. The standard thought is to assume that the Legion was destroyed in some massive battle that's poorly recorded. But this is fairly unlikely, as the Romans were actually fairly good at recording all the major battles that they fought in, including the ones they lost, especially if there was someone to actually blame for the loss. So a mystery battle is unlikely. But there are some major battles that the Ninth potentially could have been involved in. Like in 132 AD, there was a second Jewish revolt which took place in Judea, but there were closer troops than the Ninth available to be transferred, including the 22nd Legion, which does appear to have been destroyed around that time. But the chances of two Roman legions being destroyed seems really unlikely without a much clearer record of what happened, a much greater scandal being registered in Rome at the time. Now, another potential battlefield is fighting against the Parthians in Cappadocia. While the Romans did suffer a significant defeat in the area, there were already two legions stationed in that area, and both survived to be recorded in 197. So it seems unlikely to have actually been the end for the Ninth. The final option for some kind of battle appears to bring us back to Britain, where the Ninth still could have been stationed if only a small detachment had actually been sent from the Ninth to be deployed in Germany Inferior. The possibility that the Ninth, rather than being defeated in one single massive battle, very likely being recorded, the Ninth was instead whittled away in a series of smaller fights which slowly reduced their numbers until the legion ceased to exist. Although the empire was in real trouble around this time, the idea that Rome would allow an entire legion to be degraded to such an extent that it could be defeated in such a way without being able to supplement the troops from somewhere else really isn't that credible. So if a major battle is unlikely, it could be the result of the whole legion being overcome by, some say, natural disaster, like a storm at sea, or transferring the troops from one location to another. While storms and shipwrecks are fairly common in this time, it's unlikely that any storm, no matter how bad, would mean they would destroy the entire Roman legion. And if it had happened, surely would have been a report about it relayed to Rome. Then there's the option of disease or poisoning. Again, we come again the same issues with a storm. There would have been some survivors, and some account would have reached Rome. So what possibilities does that then leave us with? One thing's for certain is that Roman Empire was actually in trouble at this time. The army was losing troops due to rebellions and invasion, but it was still holding on, would continue to do so for some time yet to come. So let's look at what happened to other armies in modern times under comparable circumstances to the Roman army. The standard practice where possible is that troops are pulled out of the conflict zone to rest and recover. Wounded troops are healed and returned to their unit, and the dead or critically wounded are replaced by new recruits to bring the army, or in this case the legion, back up to strength. However, losses Rome was suffering meant that replacing men wasn't that easy, and also raw recruits lacking experience could damage the fighting effectiveness of a veteran legion. Raw recruits could potentially panic, causing a rout, and creating a hole to appear in a line, then cause the whole army to flee. So the other option then is to fill in the gaps with experienced troops rather than with raw recruits. The situation frequently occurred during World War II. The major problem was where to get these experienced troops from when the whole army is under pressure. Again, the solution was to take two damaged units, reorganize, re-equip them in some generally safe area, and then merge the units into a single fighting force. So rather than the 9th Legion being defeated in some unknown battle and ceasing to exist, the troops from the 9th could have been potentially merged with another legion to create a strong and powerful legion which was more capable than the remnants of two smaller, depleted legions. While we can never know for sure this is exactly what happened to the 9th, it does seem to be the most logical solution, if not quite the dramatic story that other theories would lead you to believe. It could even be that the troops in Germany Inferior had already been merged into the new legion, but still regarded them as part of the 9th Legion, which is why the archaeological evidence indicates that the 9th Legion was actually present around that time.